My entitled father demands that I buy him a house. When I was a kid, my father had a terrible credit history. He also had me at the age of 18 and divorced my biological mother after 5 years and 4 children. Since we were taken into foster care and later returned to our father's custody, he had to pay child support for the duration of that period. He never did pay the child support, and as a result, his credit was severely damaged. Even after 20 years, he's still not received a penny. My brother's SSI check was the only way he was able to get his money. He's also done nothing to boost his credit rating. As a result, he is unable to or unwilling to have anything in his name, and he is instead relying on me and my siblings to do it on his behalf. After operating illegally for over a decade, his company is now registered in my brother's name. Now he wants to purchase the home where he now resides. In theory, he was meant to buy it by a land contract, but in practice, he made the sale by word rather than by deed. If the landlord is seeking to sell the home, he is relying on me since my brother was not authorized. On paper, I have the finest credit and earn more money than my siblings, but I'm not going to go along with it. I'm delighted to assist him find the proper channels and authorize his own credit, but I'm not going to do it for him. If I bought him a house before I bought mine, it wouldn't set well with me. And now he's ringing my phone nonstop to tell me how he raised me and how much I owe him. In order to raise us, Dad had to make many sacrifices and awful decisions. It always amazes me how little I can do to assist. Cold and indifferent, I am nothing but. Even when I provide so much, it doesn't seem like enough. He doesn't seem to grasp the fact that I could never rely on him for assistance should the need arise. This is a great post. I can't believe how much you're putting into this. It's so inspiring. We all have our struggles, but sometimes it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm glad that you've been able to find a way through your own darkness, and I hope that you never lose sight of that light again. I'm also glad that you're being honest about your family's financial struggles. This is something so many people struggle with, but don't talk about because they feel ashamed or embarrassed by it. If more people were open about their struggles, maybe more people would be able to help each other out of them. When I was in foster care, I discovered that I had a biological father. I grew up in Hawaii. He's from the Caribbean. Mom was born and raised in the US. She's a different can of beans altogether. I used WhatsApp to communicate with him, and he would respond. Because he didn't raise me, I'm entitled to my dating choices. Additionally, he emphasized his displeasure with the fact that I'm always surrounded by racist Asians and whites, saying things like, "Eating pork is wicked." Normal dad stuff like that. Imagine being an American GI and realizing, oh my gosh, they don't revere George Washington and eat dinguin, and being furious because you found your long-lost kid in the Philippines. When he discovered me, I was 17 years old, and he wanted me to conform to his cultural norms and expectations. The money he sent me was much welcomed since my foster parents used to just care for the Filipino foster kid and spend all the money they got from the government. If it's not already clear, the foster parents were Filipinos. Non-Filipino foster children were left to fend for themselves, including myself. They provided us with a place to sleep and some food, but that was all they did for us. We'd have to purchase school supplies, pay for washing, and come up with a strategy to get clothing and other necessities. They were also blatantly anti-Semitic. A foster parent's license was revoked in the end. Anyhow, my father turned out to be a raving narcissist. Much like my mother, when we spoke about him, he'd wax lyrical about how great he was, how adored he was, and how I should return to the Caribbean as soon as possible to reacquaint myself with my culture and declare that I was a black Caribbean girl. Every time we spoke, he'd bring up culture, how I was a pure black lady and how I should return to my roots. In the past, he told me that if I mentioned being mixed race, it was because of American cultural misunderstanding. He was very prejudiced towards anybody who was not precisely like him. My spouse must be pure black, with dark complexion and dreadlocks. Like him, of course. This man's insanity is beyond words. He thinks he has the right to choose a partner for his estranged daughter, who grew up in the socially progressive state of Hawaii. This white man seemed attractive to me, and we struck up a friendship at the time. Many of our differences really unite us. Fast forward a few months, and my father learns about my acquaintance in a roundabout way. Withholding knowledge makes me feel like I'm telling lies, therefore I'm telling the truth now. It was my father's rage that he threatened to go to Hawaii and murder my partner and called me a sick, Americanized Bedouin NCH, a sellout, and a mean Americanized Bedouin NCH. Afterwards, he distanced himself from me and ceased communicating with me. not without a slew of threats, in which they branded me a sellout and a foolish white girl with no sense of culture. Yes, my father is wonderful. This dude has me completely perplexed. In the course of raising me, Dad is upset that I do not share his cultural ideas and consider myself to be mixed since he had me with a white American lady. Wow, I'm sorry that you went through all of that. It sounds like your dad was a really prejudiced person. But he didn't know any better because he grew up with the same prejudices and never learned to question them. I think one of the most important things we can do as parents is to teach our children that it's okay for them to be different from us. Even if it means not being exactly like us. It's important for kids to know that even though they may look different from their parents, that doesn't mean they're any less loved or valued. To set the scene, I was shopping at a local farmer's market nursery in downtown Dallas for an Earth Day event for my company. It's a high-end nursery that's popular with visitors and social media influencers. My skin tone is olive, my hair is black, and my eyes are brown. I'm carrying a cart full of pots, succulents, mulch, and planting soil, all while wearing a silk shirt, slacks, and red-bottomed heels that I just got at a sales meeting. On day pagar, a young Caucasian lady says as she goes up to me. A little issue at first. My eye focuses on the 3 registers, each of which has 2 staff manning 2 registers and a 2-person queue. A few seconds after I switch my focus to the agave plants, she asks, "Hablar Englisho," and thanks me again in Spanish. Yes, English is my native tongue. When she asks whether the phone can call her up, she seems shocked and uncomfortable, but then asks me if it can. But I was too polite to tell her outright that I didn't work there. "No, ma'am, I don't work here." She apologized and seemed uncomfortable. My cart was parked in a location away from the tight lanes, where there were potted plants on exhibit, sculptures, and lawn decorations I did not want to risk knocking over. I pull over to the side of the road, park the cart, and make my way over to a row of enormous urns. As I return to my cart to unload my purchases, a middle-aged blonde lady unloads my cart. "My goods, ma'am. Please excuse my tardiness." I yell her name. As I get closer, she gives me a sideways glance and then starts unloading again. It's all she says, "I want this cart." Picking up my succulents, I tell her, "This one is mine. Go ask an employee for assistance locating one." And I place them back in the cart. She seems to be enraged, yet she just walks away. In my mind, that's all there is to it. The situation would be hilarious if it were not so heartbreaking. Then she returns with a manager who seems befuddled and informs him that I'm not allowing her to use the cart. My answer to his question is a resounding no. Despite his best efforts, she responds with, "This establishment needs to put its customers' needs above its staff." He offers to find her another. After an inadvertent snort, he blurts out, "She doesn't work here. She's shopping just like you." She created a fuss and threatened to denounce him to the proprietors since she didn't like being laughed at. Upon his arrival, he makes himself known and it turns out he is one of the business proprietors. He informs her that a Home Depot is just 5 miles away when she threatens to go elsewhere with her business. She had a lovely expression on her face. Another interruption came twice without apologies as others asked for assistance with succulents while I was chatting to the proprietor. When the owner informs them, "I'm with a customer, but I can refer you to someone else who can assist you," they seem surprised or shocked. Over the last 4 decades, I've lived and worked in this region, and I look forward to many more years of service in this community. Is it ever going to change? I love a good farmer's market, but I've never seen anything like this. I'm so impressed with how you handled it. You were so calm and friendly, and it sounds like that helped the customer who was trying to be respectful of your time. I think we all get frustrated by people who don't know how to be considerate of other people's time. But in this case, it sounds like you handled it really well. My children and their friends had a bake sale a few weeks ago to raise money for a good cause. Tourists flock to our neighborhood, and the youngsters are making a fortune. So that they may learn about net gains, I inform the students that they should be charged for their work and ingredients. But instead I'll give them to their cause and ask them to return the money I loaned them to make change. It makes me happy to watch the students take initiative, put in the effort, and be ecstatic when they succeed. At some point, the neighbor's son gets tired of waiting around and tells my child, "When you're done with this, come over and bring half the money." "This isn't fair. If you're going, we should share the money immediately," my coworker replies. However, the majority of their revenue came from my baking. The next door neighbor's youngster is enraged, but my family stands firm. They divide the money, and the kid storms off in a rage. My friend arrives a few hours later, exhausted after hauling home and cleaning up all the equipment. The doorbell rings, and I answer it. The mother of the neighbor's child is out front, still sulking. Mom has a receipt in her hand. Mom argues that they spent a lot of money on the bake sale items and that it's unfair that my daughter is profiting from their purchases. Therefore, they should be reimbursed, even though the ticket mentions many products that I can tell they didn't use, such as 2 boxes of cereal when they only used 1. And napkins that I'd provided. I'm not too concerned. Never mind that her kid had gone home early, leaving mine to clean up. Also, it didn't matter that I'd been baking cookies all morning. What was supposed to be a happy, joyful day of kids earning money hand over fist has been turned into an unpleasant dialogue because the parents feel their child can't be incorrect. I'm annoyed, so I answer, of course, and get my receipts out of my pocket. It is in front of them and out loud that I calculate the cost of lemonade, as well as how many cup sizes are needed for the drink. For each batch of cookies, I add up the cost of ingredients like flour, sugar, chocolate chips, vanilla bean, and butter. My generosity extends to include the baking soda as well. I even deduct the worth of the cookies that are still in the pan. Have I mentioned how many cookies I baked? The 13-year-old next door is on the hook for $23. All of a sudden, there was a palpable sense of calm. In gratitude, I gave the woman a cookie platter to take back to the house. She said no. Why? That's a lovely gesture. I'm sure they'll be happy to help their cause and return the money you loaned them so they can make change. I know what you mean about the next door neighbor's youngster being angry. It's frustrating when kids act like that. But I think it's important to stand firm in the face of anger, even if sometimes it makes us uncomfortable. It sounds like your family is doing a great job of making sure that everyone gets what they need, even if it means some people are making more or less than others. Am I the bad guy if I tell my wife that the lock on my daughter's door won't be taken off until my sister-in-law and her daughters leave? Sammy, my brother-in-law, lost his house soon after he and his wife split up 10 months ago. A couple of months ago, he moved in with us and brought his 18-year-old twin daughters, Olivia and Sloane, with him. His sister, who is also my wife, and I have one daughter together. Her name is Zoe, and she is 16 years old. Olivia and Sloane don't care about Zoe's privacy at all. They would just walk into her room and take everything they could. Makeup, phone parts, clothes, a laptop for school, etc. Zoe complained a lot, and I've already told the other girls to stop taking things from Zoe and respect her privacy. Sammy and my wife didn't see anything wrong with this. They are girls, after all, and this is how most teenage girls act. I didn't agree at all. Zoe saved up for over a month to buy a $60 AITA makeup kit that looks like a paint set. One of the other girls, Sloane, took it without asking and ruined it by mixing colors together while using it. Zoe said this when she found the kit on her bed and started crying. She didn't know much about makeup. I told my wife, and she said she'd ask Sloane to apologize. When I saw that Zoe was moving valuable things out of the house because of this, I bought her a lock. Sammy and his daughters were upset when they saw the lock. The girls were very upset. Sammy asked me about it, and I told him right away. He said my daughters don't steal. It's normal for girls the same age to borrow things from each other. He said Zoe could easily get another makeup kit from Walmart for $15 and shouldn't even be buying expensive adult makeup. He suggested that my wife fix Zoe's defect of trying to look older than she is. He said I was too protective of Zoe and that I was helping her too much. I told him that this was between me and my wife, but she made fun of me for putting a lock on Zoe's door so that her cousins could see and forbid them from spending time with her. She said I was supposed to treat them like daughters and demanded that I take it off. I told her that I wouldn't take it off until her brother and his daughters moved out. She got mad I was saying that her family would hate me if we kicked them out. So I reminded her that I let Sammy and his family move in, which is something her own family wouldn't do. So she should start by blaming them for not taking in their own son and nieces, granddaughters. We wouldn't have to deal with so much trouble at home if her family weren't so unwilling to help. Everyone has been ignoring me and Zoe, which is very upsetting to my wife. Sammy, I'm so sorry to hear that you've been going through a rough time. I've been in situations like that, and it's not easy. It's hard on everyone, especially when there are kids involved. I'm glad you have a lock on Zoe's door to keep your daughters out. That sounds like the right thing to do in this situation. My family did the same thing when my brother had some trouble with his ex-girlfriend stealing from him while they were still together. I didn't want her bringing any more drama into our lives, so we had a lock installed on his door too. My neighbors think that now, my life is all about them. So, today's episode of WTF from the neighbors is that I have to get their permission before doing anything that makes noise. My next door neighbor just called to tell me that his wife told him to stop hammering. I couldn't believe it. I kind of just stood there and said, "Excuse me," and he told me that because they were having a baby, we couldn't make any noise for the next few months. I laughed at him in his face and shut the door. Now, his wife is yelling at my door, and he is sending me a message telling me to just do what his wife says. So, some history. In 2011, my husband bought this house. Both houses have only one family living in them. Both of our lots are 1.5 lots, which means there are about 33 feet between our houses. The rest of the houses on the street are only 6 feet apart. The husband of my neighbor was already at home. 8 years ago, I moved in. Soon after that, I met my neighbor for the first time. It was someone I'd known since I was 4 years old. All the way through high school, they went to school together. We are 40. He met someone 3 years ago. At the time, she had a 2-year-old daughter. She would stay at his house, and I would always see the kid walking around the neighborhood. They would just send her outside without any supervision, toys, or a yard with a fence and expect her to keep herself busy. The child was a brat, and he or she still is. She moved in with her daughter 2 years ago. My yard is full of fun toys because I run a daycare, but we also have 3 other places that are fenced off. One for our summer pool, one for our dogs, and one for our winter hot tub. All of them have separate fences and gates that close on their own, and my outside fence is 6 feet high. When COVID happened, the kids were at home doing virtual school. She never did it in the end. She would be at my door in the middle of the day. If she ever asks me to let her into my yard, I would tell her that she can't be here when I have daycare kids, and that my daughter will come out to play after dinner. She went to their backyard, dragged some patio furniture to my fence, and climbed in. No one really knows how long she was in there, but she decided she was done, and then she couldn't get out. My main gate's latch is at the top, so the babies can't open it when I'm not looking. She began to scream. I left in a hurry. I took her home and told her mother what had happened. Her mother yelled at me for not letting her play. If she is on my property during daycare hours, I could be fined $100,000. I told you this. Still, she became angry and called me a bench. I stopped there. A few more times, it happened. I started sending them bills for daycare. They kept going on. I finally told them that the next time I would have to call the police. I did that, too. This time, though, Mom and Grandpa were sitting on the stairs outside and watching her do it. When she screamed, they didn't even bother to come help her open the gate. The police told them to stop or Mom would be charged with putting her children in danger. I know that the top of my fence has sensors that will let me know if someone or something goes over it. As she has grown up, it has gotten better. So, we set up our above-ground pool last summer. I just put in an order for a new heater and pump system. The pool was about half full. I had also just put my planters back together. I look at my security cameras without much thought and see her by the pool. I'm going. The main gate was open, and kids were running and playing from yard to yard. She took it upon herself to go to the pool and dump buckets of soil from my planters into the pool. My brand new $1,000 pump divided by heater system was damaged by $400 in less than 4 hours. I got angry and told her to leave my yard and not come back. She is not allowed in my yard at all unless I am there with her. Now, let's get to the present. Last week, they had a new child, and the hammering I do in my basement can be heard 33 feet away in their house. And they expect me to finish my project in the fall. So, I'm sitting on my bench outside with a glass of water while I mow the lawn while my outdoor speakers play metal music, which is much louder than the few hammering sounds. I'll finish that after dark tonight. If you're a neighbor, you know what it's like to have people living next door who just don't seem to get it. They think that now your life is all about them, and they're wrong. As a homeowner, you have the right to enjoy your property and live a happy, stress-free life. That's why we're sharing our best tips for dealing with noisy neighbors. 1. Talk to them first. Many times, problems can be resolved simply by talking about them. If you approach the situation with respect and an open mind, your neighbors may be surprised by how easy it is to come up with solutions together. 2. Document everything. Write down dates, times, and situations when the noise was particularly loud or disruptive. This will help prove that the problem is ongoing and not just an isolated incident. 3. Reach out to your local authorities if necessary. They might be able to help mediate between you and your neighbors or take other actions in order to protect both parties' rights as homeowners. I worked at Blockbuster as a college student in the early 2000s. Renting a movie cost $3.70 back then, and you could only keep it for 2 nights if you were an adult. There were also ridiculous late fines, as most adults recall. $1 off a movie rental was available by scanning a barcode on the register's side, but only if it resulted in an extra sale. Pricey candy and movie rentals were a part of the plan to boost sales of the overpriced confectionery. On Saturday night, I asked everyone in the busiest of Blockbuster locations in the state to donate $1 to St. Jude's, and only 2 people did so out of several hundred. I was annoyed that people would spend so much money on late fees and additional rentals they didn't need. But I did it anyway because it was for a good cause. Because I had to scan a piece of paper, the $1 gift didn't show up on my bank account the next day. As a result of the gift being considered an additional sale, I decided to launch my own campaign. It was a $1 discount for everyone who committed to contribute $1 to charity. To help raise money for the organization, I shaved $1 off each customer's rental and scanned their barcode for the $1 donation each time they returned a DVD to the store. It was a win-win situation for everyone involved. Blockbuster's own upselling tactics were used against them, and I was able to raise several $1,000s for a worthy cause. It was the early 2000s, so you weren't being quizzed about contributing wherever you went. After seeing how much money went to late fees that could have been easily avoided, I was disgusted that so many people didn't donate because they had to complain about it. I couldn't understand why somebody would refuse to assist a child in need in exchange for $1. There are some individuals who regard this as theft or don't get it. Blockbuster routinely overcharged their customers, and this was my little attempt, as a penniless college student, to make amends. Oof, that's rough. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I think it's great that you're using your experience to help others, especially since Blockbuster has been very publicly trying to make amends as well. I think the thing that really stood out to me was your use of Blockbuster's own upselling tactics against them. It wasn't just about making money. It was about getting back at them for what they did to us all by making us feel bad about ourselves and our finances. It sounds like this was an important experience for you, and I hope you continue doing things like this in the future.